I kind of want to flesh this all out for you guys, and I want to get your thoughts, right? So I think so. There's a couple things that goes into this question for me as whether or not I think Alyssa Thomas will ever win a ring, and I am concerned that Alyssa Thomas will become one of the greatest WNBA players to never win a ring for a number of reasons. Number one, she's up there in age, right? She doesn't have as many days ahead of her as she does behind her, and with the way that she plays basketball, just the physicality, the physical toll on her body, the bully ball aspect, like that is going to wear on her. But here's my thing, right? When we talk about who, I know we don't like to do it, but when we take a WNBA player like Alyssa Thomas, we compare them to the NBA. Normally, we're comparing Alyssa Thomas to Draymond Green because at the forward position, her ability to facilitate offense, to run the offense as a passer, also again the bully ball aspect, and just the document as well. That tracks, and it's a really good comparison as far as play style is concerned. That comparison is what fuels my concerns because, gentlemen, Draymond Green's not the best player on his team. Draymond Green has a Steph Curry, someone who has gravity, someone who is impactful, not just as a finisher, not just as a passer, not just in the mid-range, but specifically on the perimeter, who complements Alyssa Thomas. Who complements Draymond Green very, very well. And my concern is because of the fact that she is limited because of her shoulders, because of, as you mentioned, Dan, she's like a 1.5 level scorer, as you called it. Her lack of threat from the perimeter requires a specific type of player to be around her. Like, you need players who can shoot. You need players who can space the floor. You need players who can be impactful offensively. But most importantly, you need another player who can facilitate. Like, you need another player who, if Alyssa Thomas is on the floor, can still run this offense. I told Mark earlier today that when the Nuggets went on their run in 2021 to the championship, I was on a podcast and they asked me, who's the most important player on the Nuggets? And they both said that it's Nikola Jokic. And I said Jamal Murray. And they jumped down my throat about it. I said, well, let's think about it here. Nikola Jokic with Jamal Murray was in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, losing to LeBron in the bubble. He gets hurt. He doesn't sniff the conference finals after that. Jamal Murray comes back. They're winning a championship. What's the difference? Nikola Jokic, as great as he was, as a facilitator, as the hub of their offense in the post, he had a guy on the perimeter who could run the offense but could score. And when you think about the great bigs in the history of basketball that kind of play that way, they had that. And Alyssa Thomas doesn't have that. And I don't want this to be an indictment on Alyssa Thomas to say that, Alyssa Thomas can't do it or she isn't capable of being the best player on a championship caliber team because she's the best player on her team. And I don't want this to be an indictment on Satou, Sabally, or Kahleah because Martin and I both agree that they are top 10 players, top 10 talent, however you want to frame it. But I'm starting to feel that Alyssa Thomas at this point in her career is where LeBron is at this point in his. If LeBron James is the best player on the Lakers probably aren't winning a championship in 2025. That's just not happening. That's why they went out and they got Luka Doncic, someone who is younger, who can be the best player and who can do some of the things that LeBron can do at a much better level. And I just worry that if you're going to get someone to play with Alyssa Thomas, you need one of two things. They either need to be considerably better than Alyssa Thomas or on Alyssa Thomas's level. Here's the problem. The two players that are better than Alyssa Thomas, Nafisa Collier, A'ja Wilson, they're not going anywhere. They're in Minnesota and they're in Vegas for good. And whatever players that are behind Alyssa Thomas and are on her level, they're also probably not going anywhere anytime soon. And so I'm genuinely concerned that the way that Alyssa Thomas has to play, because of a decision she made, and I am not at all knocking her for this decision, but the way that she has to play and how limiting it is requires the Phoenix Mercury to have a specific type of basketball team. And I worry that there's not enough of those specific type of players around for the Phoenix Mercury to surround Alyssa Thomas with those players. So I'm not sure if Alyssa Thomas will ever win a ring. I'm not saying she can't. I'm not saying she won't. I genuinely don't know. And it all boils down to the way that she plays basketball.
So I think my opinion on what limited the Mercury was their relative lack of depth in relationship to the Aces. I also think that the points about Alyssa regarding the limited style of play that a team that's very successful with her would have to take on is very valid. I am interested to see how both Alyssa, Ka, and then the rest of the veterans in the league look at roster construction and how they might decide to go after the throne. I could see, say, someone like Naz Hillman, someone who is positionally rather versatile, is still improving, has more to her game that she displayed in college that people didn't necessarily think would transfer to the pros. If you were to, like, I'm just doing, hypothetical roster construction. If you got a floor spacing big like Naz to go next to Alyssa instead of Natasha Mack or Kalani Brown, what would that team look like? If the thing that I thought was a limiting factor, and to their credit, neither of them acted salty about it, but there were a lot of times in this final series where the ball should have flowed more through Copper than it did, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The thing that the Aces were allowed to do, and part of it is personnel, right? Because Chelsea Gray,
Right.
if you were going to have any type of liability offensively, Chelsea Gray as a roamer is just a nightmare. Like, she became a top 10 level pro women's basketball defender over the course of the postseason in an unassailable way. You just watch her and you're going, how is this possible for someone to shape shift into this? That's where we talk about basketball intellect and what we were speaking about earlier with, okay, so the players took over some of the scouting and this was the result. So in my mind, I think if the players of the WNBA who have proven that winning is an orientation of theirs, that they're willing to scale up or down their game to be excellent as a collective, I think Alyssa as a core piece is the perfect person to attach yourself to. So I don't know what that will be. And I don't have a sheet of all the players right there, but I think that a group of players might get down to Unrivaled and start talking and decide, hey, why don't we stack the deck? Like, the salaries are going way up. 1 year. Let's do this 1 year and see how it goes. So now the counter argument is that Asia and Fee are going to continue to be them, and their supporting cast are going to continue to be them. And, valid, but.
And people are going to want to play with them too, Dan.
Yep.
They could be stealing recruits. People will want to play with them too.
Let me make just one more point about Alyssa's game from an NBA comp standpoint. And I said this like a year and a half ago when I was first getting into the space more substantively. She reminds me of a combo of Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler. I think that is the way that I would make sense of her game. And she's got the pushing the floor of Draymond. She's got the defensive versatility of Draymond, but she also has the offensive creation that can be somewhat heliocentric and bully ball related.
Yes.
Now, the issue being that she does not have even the mid-range jump shot of Jimmy Butler. But
Right.
one other piece, the thing that I was looking at is when we talk about floor raisers defensively, the fact that AT has never won Depoy is criminal because she was fourth in the WNBA in defensive rating this last year, and she didn't have another player on her team in the top 18. So I think that players around the league should be looking at this and going, well, if I can't hitch my wagon to these two, pretty clear 1 and 2 in the WNBA, that something could be figured out. But, this is the issue of being in a professional basketball league where there are 13 going on 15 teams. The talent is so condensed that you've got to have a really, really good team in order to compete with the best of the best. So it's an uphill battle, but I think it's more plausible than a lot of the guys we've looked at in the NBA and said, I think it's just passed them by. No, I think some vets and even young ascendant pros should get together and figure out that this is the way to make their mark in the WNBA.
Here's on the Nafisa and Asia thing, something that just hit me. Here's the other thing about Alyssa Thomas that kind of concerns me. And Alyssa Thomas, we have seen Alyssa Thomas take over basketball games. I'm not saying she's incapable of doing so, but Nafisa Kahleah, the way that Fee's game is like the way that it functions, the way that she plays basketball. Nafisa Kahleah, at times you can throw your best at Fee and she's still just unstoppable because there's something else she can go to.
Yep.
Asia Wilson, I said this I said this the other day when Martin and I were on the show. I talked about the fact that I'm 6'2", A'ja Wilson 6'4". She's taller than most players in the league, the same height as most centers. You can throw your best at A'ja Wilson. At some point, she's still just absolutely undeniable because her game has that many facets to it.
Mm-hmm.
Alyssa Thomas, at times, if you game plan correctly and if you defend her correctly, whether it's one-on-one or as a team effort, you can neutralize Alyssa Thomas offensively, which even if they run it back the same way, or even if you do make incremental adjustments here and there, right? Whether it is getting that floor spacing, finding yourself a facilitator from the perimeter. Even still, if the offense is still flowing through Alyssa Thomas, at some point, defenses can find a way to say, we will let anyone else on this roster beat us. That's not Alyssa Thomas.
Yeah.
And without that extra something, whether it's that additional facilitator from the perimeter, whether it's that floor spacing bid that you're talking about, Dan, at some point, that person, whoever that is, has to have enough to their game where they can get you to a win, despite Alyssa Thomas being neutralized, slowed down, whatever word you want to use. I think they have two players who are capable of doing that in Kahleah Copper and Satou Sabally. But they're missing the facilitating aspect of it, where it's like Alyssa Thomas almost has to play all 40 minutes. Or sometimes you look at Phoenix offense this season and it just completely grinded to a halt. It just turned into a bunch of ISO basketball. And that's just like, again, comparing her to Fee and A'ja, how many times really, unless they're match each other, how many times really have you looked at Fee or A'ja and they've just been completely neutralized or completely shut down in a game, whether it's individually or by a team? That doesn't, I mean, in the two worst games that the Aces played the Fever in the game against Minnesota. In the game against the Fever, A'ja Wilson was the only player to score more than 6 in that game. And in the game where we lost by 53 to Minnesota, A'ja was still the best player on the Aces in that game also. She was still the most productive despite. So it's like, where is that for Alyssa Thomas? How can we get that for Alyssa Thomas so that it can convert to her winning herself a championship?
Yeah, I don't think it's fair that Alyssa Thomas has to be the best point guard on her team, the best interior defender, the most physical player. It's too many different roles to have to play and excel in. And I mean, I'm with Dan, and I don't have a list in front of me either, but I think it would be ideal, obviously, if she could get like a high level guard, one of the top guards in the league. Like, sure, that sounds great, but I don't know if it even needs to be that. Like, maybe it's Akoa Makani, she's only a rookie. Maybe it's her taking another step with her playmaking and learning how to take more command of the team. Like, maybe I don't know if it's that. I'm just throwing out, like, because it's personnel and it's the roster. Sammy Whitcomb absolutely disappeared on her in the finals. I don't know if it was the Aces or the matchup, the athleticism. I don't know what Sammy Whitcomb was that. She's not the facilitator type, but she was a different player in the Minnesota series. She looked like Steve Nash against Minnesota, and she gave them nothing against Vegas. So there were a lot of things that just, in terms of the matchup, and just didn't do well for them against Vegas. DeWanna Bonner coming on and having a big game, I loved that for her. But you talk about Alyssa Thomas's age, Marcus. They had to rely, and of course that was also a result of not having Satou, and they needed DeWanna to really like step up and play better in that game, and she did. But this isn't Connecticut 3 years ago. They're not in their prime right now. It's not fair to be so. Back to Dan's point about schematically and logistically. I mean, look, this was a year one Phoenix team. Nate Tibbetts, year one with Alyssa Thomas, year one with this big three, right? They got to the finals. So I think this should be an ongoing process for Nate Tibbetts and mainly for the GM, for management, to continue to figure out how to build around Alyssa Thomas. Because in year one, you got to the finals.
It was the age too of the bench. When we're talking about having to, like, when didn't Sammy get hurt near the end of the Minnesota series or at the start of the finals? And there was a time where she went back out to
she went up for a rebound, and I think and Alyssa Smith, I believe it was, fell into her. She hyperextended her knee.
Okay.
But the point, like, I'm making is if you're got the person who's played more playoff games than anyone else in WNBA history, and DeWanna Bonner, that you're relying upon to get you 20 and 10, or even Sammy Whitcomb, who has high level of ability in spurts, but throughout the course of her career has not had extended stretches where she was relied upon as a hub of offense in the same way.
Sure.
Like I think it's a both and. Like I can't decide how to feel about it too passionately, because there is a world in which this rolls out really well for Alyssa Thomas. And it's this weird mix of there needing to be supplementary help and just her not having to be the person everything flows through when things matter. And I think just her and Ka could figure that out on a better level. And the Satou thing is a little bit confounding to me, because there were times where she was like brilliant. There were times where, and this gets a little pot shotty, but her shot selection was suboptimal at multiple points of the finals in ways that you go, well, I need her to be great, but also like the cost of that is I get the other side of the spectrum with her from time to time.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. I can we play the AT clip real quick?
Yeah,
Marcus?
I was going to play that. Yeah, I was going to play that next. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, if Alyssa Thomas is on this type of time with her shot making right now, turn around, right foot, right hand over the shoulder. If she's on this type of time, forget about guarding her. Forget about stopping her. On top of everything else that she does, if she's comfortable getting in her shot making bag like this right now, honestly, Phoenix might win the title. If Alyssa Thomas is this comfortable in her shot making bag, Phoenix might just end up winning the title. She's going to be too impossible to stop on top of everything else that she does. Like the little leaner getting into space, just a little leaner to the right foot, right hand, little push shot. The woman has a torn labrum in both shoulders. That's why her shot can look a little funky. But if she's figured out this rhythm on the timing of her shot making, the little push shot, the right foot, right hand, if she's stepping into jumpers smooth and comfortable, she's unstoppable. So the elephant in the room with AT's game is the lack of shooting. When you talk about neutralizing her from a scoring standpoint, that's what you're able to do. The Aces showed different looks where they gave her 2 steps away. They gave her plenty of space. They went matchup zone. They're like, we're not guarding you, right? Like AT's, and I think I'd be interested to obviously talk to her, about this and how she's been working through this, but I think, her confidence as a shot maker, like the stuff she was doing in that clip, we didn't see her in that mode. And that's why I said, if she's in that mode, they're probably going to win, because that is the one facet of her game that somewhat limits Phoenix and obviously limits her from a scoring standpoint. So I think her confidence in terms of that shot making, I used the language in there in terms of, I feel like she's had to have continued to figure out how to be effective, how to hit free throws. Ever since she tore those labrums, she's been constantly figuring out, right? Like, how do I still score? How do I still, like my passing isn't that much affected, right? But like shooting and scoring wise, I feel like it's probably a constant battle of just figuring out where her comfortability is, where her confidence is, where her touch is, Dan. I mean, think about how much her touch is probably like compromised just in terms of her own feel for her shot, right? So, I mean, we can't overlook just how challenging that must be. So I want to make a quick point too on AT's leadership style, because what you said, Dan, about people wanting to play with her made me have to bring this up. I saw Monica McNutt bring this up on the Women's Hoop Show recently. I'm not taking a shot at AT's leadership style. She can be a little bullish. And if you watch her body language, when people miss defensive assignments, she is the first one to be like, what are y'all doing? Right. So I think with her being the passer she is, who's led the league in assists, from a basketball standpoint, to your point, Dan, you should want to play with a player like that. I talk about that with Caitlin a lot, right, Marcus? Like when you should want to play with a great passer. And that's what Alyssa Thomas is. But in terms of the culture of what she is establishing as the best player and the leader, this is a difference between her leadership style, Fee's leadership style, Asia's leadership style. Are we seeing players having fun playing with you?
Yeah.
That's a big thing here. I think that we're going to, right? Because I think a certain kind of player would love to play with AT. Tough, physical, like Ka and Satou, I think are perfect running mates for her. They're competitive. They're fiery. They're two-way players. They're gritty. I think they're great for certain kinds of players, though, in terms of creating that atmosphere of fun and how you play. I think she could do a little bit better job of aiding to that kind of environment.
So I looked this up while we were watching that clip. She had her career high in field goal percentage from 3 to 10 feet and from 10 to 16 feet this past year. So she had never shot a higher percentage from those two quadrants of the floor from like a spatial distance standpoint. Also her career high in 2-point field goal percentage in general. So it's weird. It's like there were times in the finals where they were obviously scheming to stop her, and she was too slow to take the looks that were presented.
That's right.
And
there were times where she would have she would get it and be like, wait, why did you drive? There was no one that you had a layup. Yeah.
So, but the other thing you're saying about she reminds me in a way of like Chris Paul in terms of position. It's like, I'm brilliant. I know I'm brilliant. I'm excellent. I give full tilt effort. Right. You MFers better freaking figure out how to be on my level.
Y'all better be on your P's and Q's back there, because I'm over here guarding this player and doing this. I got to rebound. I got to pass to y'all. Y'all better, at the very least, y'all better be rotating down on the,
So very, very unlikely, but it's almost the type of player that I think would work perfect with her. Spacing big, kind of got that attitude of just like, y'all better get on the program because I'm that woman. If she ever had an opportunity to play with Neko Ogwumike.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, yeah. That
works. And again, like it's the skill, right, of distribution of who can do what, the attitude. Like there's no way the two of them are not going to be able to bulldog with each other. And, but again, highly unlikely. But
sure.
What you're bringing up is such a valid point, because I can't tell you how many times during the playoffs you would hear Ruko or Rebecca just be like, "Oh, Alyssa Thomas looks kind of mad right now."
Yeah.
And it was like we're seeing it.
It's out there. I mean, it's not some. I mean, if you're watching, you've probably seen it. Like it's pretty glaring at times, right?
Here's what I said to Martin earlier today, and I think it is ironic considering the way the season ended. But I think in a weird way, this is the best possible way the Mercury season could have ended. It wasn't a scenario like the Liberty game, right, where it was just a really physical series, and even though they had their shortcomings, they found a way to win. It wasn't even a series like the Link series, where another really physical series, but now you question, did we win this series because of us, or we win this series because their best player was out, the game clinching game? They got swept.
Yeah.
They got outdone in all 4 games. The Aces found a different way to win in all 4 games. If the Mercury would have forced it to 7 and lost how Minnesota lost, it would have just, we'll run it back. Minnesota did, right? We'll just bring back the same team and we'll see what we can do next year. If they would have even stole a game, right, but all the games were close, maybe we just need to finish better in these games and we could be champions. They got swept, which means the organization and I understand this is year 1 of the big 3. This is year 2 of Nate Tibbetts. This is year 1 post DT. I got all that. But the organization top to bottom has a great opportunity to take a look at themselves in the mirror and say, okay, despite all of that, despite only returning 2 starters, despite having more rookies on our roster than any other team in the WNBA, despite losing Satou, despite we were in the finals, and yes, we lost in 4, but we didn't lose in 4 to just anybody.
Right.
We lost in 4 to a team who, coming into the playoffs, won 16 straight and had won on 2 of the previous 3 champions. Like, we lost to the hottest team in basketball up to this point. But it gives them a chance to look in the mirror and answer a lot of these questions.
Yeah.
Not saying they're going to make a crazy decision like move off of Ka or Satou. No, but not saying Nate Tibbetts going to be fired like I saw some people suggest on threads, but it gives them a sit back and say, okay, what do we need to build on this? Because this isn't like the Minnesota series from last year against Liberty where they lost on the last play of the last game in the last minute to questionable officiating. That's not what happened. Right. They got outclassed in all 4 games. And this loss for the Mercury in the finals, very similar to losing by 53 at home for the Aces. They got to look in the mirror. And I think this is where that leadership style, Martin, of Alyssa Thomas is going to be tested. What kind of leader are you, Alyssa? Are you going to be like Asia Wilson and say, yo, look, if you're okay with how we just lost the championship, don't come back next season? Or is this going to be a collective effort from Alyssa, Ka, Satou, Nate Tibbetts, GM, Christy, to just figure out what do we need? What do we need to keep? What do we need to change? How can we build on this next season? Because if you take away the championship, I said this last week, I was joking about it, but I did mean it. There are no moral victories in sports. This is a great moral victory. There are a lot of great things to pull away from this season. Their defensive rating shot up. They had one of the worst defensive ratings last year. They were towards the top of the league this year. We know what Alyssa Thomas was, MVP candidate. They were a top 4 seed in the WNBA this season. Like, they beat the defending champs. They beat the runner-ups. Regardless of the circumstances, it happened. They found themselves in the WNBA finals.
Yeah, successful
in year 2. It's a successful season. But this loss gives them a great opportunity, an opportunity very similar to what the 53-point loss gave to the Aces. And I'm now very eager to see not just how they handle the offseason, but how whatever they do in the offseason translates to their year next year. It gives them a great opportunity. And I'm just, in a weird way, this was the best possible ending for the Mercury. To lose this championship the way that they did gives them a chance to really, really put it all out there and figure out what do we keep, what do we get rid of, how do we come back next year, and hopefully not get swept, but find ourselves winning a championship in 2026.
I think Mercury fans would argue that the best possible ending would be them winning the 2025 championship. But I know what you're saying. This is the best possible scenario in terms of them losing. Maybe it's better that they got swept. And so I hear your point. I just wanted to also say that there are a lot of good players out there, man. A lot of good players out there. Doesn't have to be a Paige Beckers or an Alicia Gray, or it doesn't have to be that. A lot of good players out there, man. They have a lot to work with and build on. And so I don't think I ever outright answered the question for me. I do think you can win a ring with AT. The league is about to change drastically, so I can't make any real predictions here, but like, they were in the finals this year. She has you're not going to accuse her of even though she's lost 3 times in the finals, you're not accusing her of being, win the game, competitive enough, doesn't care enough, doesn't play defense. Like, it's none of that stuff. Mostly limitations with her scoring. And it's like, is that going to affect things? But the more Phoenix works this is their first year with this kind of player. Nate Tibbetts' first year with this kind of player. And he gets credit for fully embracing her. Like, fully embracing her. Now it's about continuing to figure out even her, what that means to embrace her and what it means to get the most out of her with people who are playing with her.